This is the first lecture of the Comparative Religion class 1304 that is offered through Kingwood College. My name is Dr. Sharon Ann Thomas, and we will be looking at the various terms that are used in discussing religion comparatively. The first set of terms is profane versus sacred. Now, profane is just ordinary experience. We get up in the morning, we eat breakfast, we go to work, we go to school, we look after our families, we come home, we go to sleep. Extraordinary experience, that is an envelope of experience apart from ordinary experience, is often called sacred experience. It is purposeful, and it is generally about imperceptible forces. Two other terms that are often juxtaposed are imminent versus transcendent. Now, imminent is the claim that there is a sacred presence in the world. That is, nature is sacred. Each other are sacred. Objects are sacred. Transcendent is the term used to express the sacred that is eternal, apart from space and time. There's other terms as well. Atheism is the claim that reality has divine origins, and that in theism, we can have a monotheistic view, such as the Abrahamic traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, where there's a belief in the unity of God. Or we can have a polytheistic view of the divine within experience. And for this, we look to examples from ancient Greece, the pantheon of the Greek gods, or ancient Egypt, the pantheon of Isis and Osiris, contrasted with the idea that reality has divine presence, is the idea of substance. Now, some will claim that there is a single substance. It might be material. Others, philosophers, will claim there are two substances, mind and body, or thinking substance and extended matter. Other philosophers, Leibniz I'm thinking about in this case, will claim there are infinite substances, the basic unit which is the monad. I need here to talk about atheism. I think often it is misunderstood about faith. In metaphysics and philosophy, the question is raised, is there a God? And there are answers. Some will say, yes, there's a God. Without a doubt, there is a God. And others will say, no, absolutely not. And some will say, I don't know. Whatever the response to this question, it requires faith. Even the claim there is no God requires faith. No one knows for sure, and each person is responsible for his or her answer to that perennial question. Agnosticism is a skepticism of form. It is a denial of the divine, but the feeling that perhaps if the divine did exist, it might be impossible for human beings to understand or know it. Each religion has rituals. You have your own rituals within your own religious tradition, and they are repeated patterns of behavior that have religious significance. There are symbols in every religion, and these are the visual representations of an invisible reality or concept. The symbol we're looking at right now is a Jain symbol of ahimsa, and it is the idea that nonviolence in thought, word, and action is the highest religion. Allegories are narratives that are used to explain something deeper and to convey a greater abstract understanding of what religious experience is. This particular example is from the Zen Buddhist tradition, and it describes in a story the stages of enlightenment. This will be the topic of another lecture under the section of Buddhism. Suffice it to say now that this is an allegory that is used to explain understanding of a tradition. There are also myths. In every culture, there have been creation myths, flood myths, afterlife myths, and apocalypse myths. I find it fascinating that these cultures were in isolation of each other. Each culture seemed to realize that we were finite. We had a beginning. We were created. Each culture raises the question of what happens after death, and each culture understands that there is an absolute ending to life. Also, each culture understands the need for purification, which are the relevance of the flood myths. Orthodox is another term, and it is referring to those who stand by an historical form of their religion. Here we see an image of an Orthodox Jew. However, Orthodox can refer to any religious tradition, any historical form that is maintained within a religious tradition. An absolutist are those who resist contemporary influences and embrace what they perceive as the historical core of their religion. This choice I made was of the Amish in Pennsylvania. They have maintained their beliefs in the face of rapid exponential change of our modern world. Fundamentalism is a term that is used and abused and misunderstood. In this course, we will use it to refer to an insistence on a part of a religious tradition. And here is an example that I have chosen where the women of Islam are choosing to wear the hijab, and this is the fundamentalist Muslim dress. This is another controversial aspect in all religions, and it is the question of gay and lesbian relationships and the marriage of same sex. Now, liberals will take a flexible approach to religious traditions. They will not be interpreting texts literally. They will be interpreting texts metaphorically. For example, in the idea of chastity and dedication of one's soul to another, it will be perceived as without having gender. And this has caused so much strife within each religious tradition and suffering and pain for those who claim that they have same-sex tendencies. This painting is of San Sergius and San Bacchus by Robert Lenz, who is a gay artist. Heretics are those who publicly assert controversial positions against established churches. In this case, we had Martin Luther, who was the German reformer spawning the Protestant Reformation in 1529. Mystics are those who are guided by their own spiritual experiences. They are not part of organized religion and remain independent, and yet assert that religious experience is as real as any organized religious tradition will claim it to be. Redaction is a term that refers to the editing and organizing of scripture. that is used then to speak to both local and wider audiences. Often it involves translation, and there is great deal of time spent on translation and meaning, and to ensure that spirit is also translated within the text. A scientific materialism is the claim that only the material world exists, and this may or may not have divine qualities. Personally, when I look at the beauty that the Hubble Space Scope shows us of our universe, perhaps universe in plural, I can only be awed by it and humbled and thankful that I have existence to even witness such great beauty. To me, this is a feeling and a sense of the divine. Dogma refers to systems or doctrines proclaimed to be absolutely true. There is no room for doubt in dogma. There is also no room for tolerance in dogma. When religions are dogmatic, claiming to be absolutely true, they lose sight of humility, and they begin to think that God only resides in their corner or their religious tradition. Dogma is the source of great conflict in our world today. Charisma is the rare quality of personal magnetism. And I have chosen Mahatma Gandhi for this example because he single-handedly brought people to the spiritual realization of independence and self-determination. And he had great humility in his life.